when the building needs a new roof or needs new windows, whatever that happens to be, all the Bitcoin that is paid by the residents will go into their reserve account for the building, and that will just be the value of the building going forward. If you rent and you're paying rent in Bitcoin, it's your apartment. You do with the interior what you want, as long as it's done in a professional manner and it's not going to burn the place down or flood the place out. I think with Bitcoin, you get to a point where you have to be 100% transparent. At some point, we get onto a Bitcoin standard. There is no MicroStrategy that has trillions and trillions of dollars worth of value, because all of that value is only the Bitcoin that company owns at that point. Bitcoin is a force of nature almost, or it's the best protocol we have at being aligned with the natural world as we currently know it. I notice that in myself a lot as well when I'm traveling, for instance, or when there's specific times that you got to catch your plane or you got to catch your train or whatever it is, and you're running behind or people around you are somehow trying to interfere with that. When you try to fight it and you try to push back against that, it seems like it's almost like you get out of flow with the universe, practically. I know that kind of sounds weird, but it's like you just almost create your own speed bumps when you start to get in your own way, and you make yourself even more frustrated. And it's such a better feeling to just kind of run with it and just take it in stride, so to speak, and realize that you can't control those uncontrollables, what other people do or how other people act towards you, and I guess that kind of aligns with Bitcoin, right? Where it's just like, it is what it is. That is it. If you're fighting against it, you're not going to be successful. You just got to go with it. So
this ties perfectly into Bitcoin, actually. I just realized it when you said it, because I personally think you don't have a choice in Bitcoin. Like you don't choose to adopt Bitcoin or not to adopt Bitcoin, because it's such a major force. If it is what it is, we think it is. That sentence, I think, made no sense, but I will let it be. If Bitcoin is what we think it is, then you don't have a choice or say if you adopt it. It's just a matter of when do you adopt it. At some point, you will be forced to adopting it indirectly. And we are now already seeing that there are pension funds that have exposure to Bitcoin. There is the S&P 500 that has companies in them that have Bitcoin. So all those things already come in the way where you don't get to choose if you have Bitcoin. Like, everyone will have direct or indirect exposure to Bitcoin, and those who have direct exposure to Bitcoin will outperform those who have indirect exposure to Bitcoin, and those who have faster direct exposure to Bitcoin will outperform those who have later direct exposure to Bitcoin, and all those things. So I think it ties perfectly in. Don't try to change the environment. See all the things that you can do and opt in first in Bitcoin.
Yeah, man, absolutely. It's as if Bitcoin is a force of nature almost, or I think of it as almost being better, the best protocol we have at being aligned with the natural world as we currently know it. And when you can match its output or match its vibration in the universe, you just do so much better and feel so much better and have such a more positive outlook on life that I don't know. It's like the physical representation almost of kind of a natural law. You can't fight it because it just isn't going to. You're not going to win. it's not going to do you any good. Bitcoin is what Bitcoin is, and the universe is what the universe is, and you just got to go with the flow. So a lot of people, are in. It's interesting. In recently, I was on a kind of a family vacation, and there was a little tension during this vacation. And it's like the 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 flow was moving along, and a couple of people were like not interested in participating in what was happening, and they kind of made it into something bigger than what it needed to be, and it's just it just strikes me so much that Bitcoin it's here. It's that inevitability word keeps coming to mind, and I tell my wife this too sometimes, is you can fight it, but it's going to be here. It's taking over. It is rewriting all of our systems, all of our everything. When Michael Saylor, made the comment about all your models are broken, right? I Yeah, I think a lot of people took that as all your financial models are broken and just kind of left it at that. And I think it's all of our models, every system that we've built. I think I was watching Dr. Satoshi on your podcast, and he was talking about the healthcare industry and everything. And it just kind of, again, it clicked with me there that how broken that system is, and how it, like, I don't believe that anyone or any small group of humans got together and said, hey, let's screw everybody over. Let's make everybody fat and sick and unhealthy, or, let's make a lot of people poor, whatever. I think it is a symptom that we're seeing of the systems being built on fiat over the centuries, really, that are now coming to light, and we're all starting to realize that we can make those systems better by changing the base layer of how we communicate the value that we get out of those systems between each other. And I, that's gonna take a long time to work through and underwrite or overwrite all of that work that's been done to build those systems up into what they are today. And I'm yeah, it's just so great.
This is fascinating to think about. Like, if you think about what Bitcoin actually will do and what impact it will have over the long run. By the way, you mentioned it. Do you have ADHD? I mean, if oh,
I
you're just
have
saying
I
that.
have not been diagnosed with it, but as I am going through life here, getting older, I think it is coming out more. So I don't think I've got a super bad case of it, but like I said, I think it's getting worse and worse. So I I got to talk to my doctor about it.
I mean, there's a lot of Elon Musk. Oh gosh, what he has. He also came out of something, but
Yeah, I don't.
you know about it?
I don't. I remember him saying something about it a number of years ago, I believe, but I don't. I haven't paid a lot of attention to that. So
Autism. Oh yeah. ASD, like the autism
yeah,
spectrum disorder. That's different from ADHD. Yeah. But it's interesting how a lot of great minds actually have what traditional medical people say a illness, a disorder, a sickness, or whatever. I'm like, yeah, like maybe I think you needed to be a little bit crazy to be a genius. It's like, take it as a compliment. It's like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I do believe that there is benefits to all of us, right? Every single one of us. people that have autism or that have ADHD or that have other mental health illnesses aren't, again, the medical system, has learned to try and diagnose that as it's like the nail that gets, the every raised nail gets hammered, right? It's this idea that if you don't fit into some quote unquote normal behavior, that something must be wrong with you. And I think Bitcoin is going to help us realize that no, it's not something wrong. It's just people have a different perspective. They have a different view on what the world is around us. And that doesn't make it a disease or an illness that has to be fixed. It just makes it a different perspective. And we, as society, we've got to learn to better appreciate other people's perspectives. And if it is a issue for that person, if they don't want to be, so maybe, they call themselves scatterbrained, or they are physically harming themselves or others because of something, then maybe we need to try and help them, right? Instead of labeling them as, schizophrenic or whatever the case is, and I'm probably getting myself in trouble with people in the medical field here for sure, but it isn't every single person, and that holds a different perspective from us doesn't have to be fixed or aligned with what our perspective is. We grow as humans, as a civilization, by being able to adopt or adapt to our changing environment. And if others are recognizing something or perceiving the environment differently, I think it gives us an opportunity to look at it differently as well and try to better align with what is actually going on. So
That's it's a very wise viewpoint, I feel like. And one thing that I usually do is asking people before we get started with the topics, but we directly started in with the topics, to give the people an overview of who you are and especially why you're excited about Bitcoin. So maybe you can still do that.
yeah, sure, Robin. Sorry about that. Thanks for having me on again as well. Yeah, I'm Jason Hagenow. I'm a Bitcoiner in Madison, Wisconsin. I have been interested in Bitcoin really since like 2020, 2021 for sure is when I fully went down the rabbit hole. I bought, yeah. Anyway, I also am a vice president of a property management company. And so my focus for most of my adult life had been in that apartment field in the multifamily industry. And since finding Bitcoin, my focus is pretty much on Bitcoin, and how Bitcoin is going to, excuse me, how Bitcoin is going to change that system or that industry from the ground up. My wife and I own a couple of small apartment buildings ourselves, and I accept Bitcoin for rent. And currently, out of my 7 units, I've got one renter that is still taking me up on it. Has been now for almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in October. And that process is going really, really well. So I couldn't be happier. It continues to bring me more value and my renter more value. And we do that in a kind of a cool way. I've talked about it before with you, but just so everybody knows, they get to recognize a 50% split of any appreciation in the price in the fiat price of the Bitcoin that they give me for the rent for up to 6 months after they give it to me. And so what that has resulted in is them saving now almost 2 months of rent over the last 2 years. They've saved themselves almost $2,400 just by us having that agreement and them using Bitcoin to pay me. It's really so simple. It kind of blows my mind that other people aren't doing that yet, but I'm working on trying to get the word out there. So
I would love to do that. Like I would take you up like in a second. Like why wouldn't I?
yeah,
Why
right?
wouldn't I just lower my rent with that? Like that it's a no
Exactly.
brainer.
Yep.
Even if I hate Bitcoin, I would take you up on that offer.
Yeah. Well, it really is kind of it blows my mind that none of my other residents have taken me up on it. Again, I haven't pushed them really hard on it or sat down. I had one that was almost there, and then I think his partner got cold feet and kind of got worried about what was going on. I think there's still some thought out there that people think the government is going to, like, you know, lock us all up and put us in jail if we're using Bitcoin or whatever the case is. But
Which is crazy to think in America when the president is talking about Bitcoin and he's at Bitcoin conferences. Like that's a crazy thought.
yeah, absolutely. But it's there. I think that comes from people's parents. It is a symptom of our systems. You know, the system has been in place to pay for, to exchange value with the US dollar for so long in the US. And it's a spectrum, and it's just going to take time for people to get more and more comfortable with it.
But get this, like the chief commanding officer of the United States literally says, I love Bitcoin, Bitcoin is great, and all those things. And you think this guy with the executive force that he has will come and arrest you because you have Bitcoin? Like he has to arrest himself then. It makes no sense. Like what? Like if you think that about if you're in China and you think that, I get it. If you are, I don't know, somewhere else where the government is more hostile towards Bitcoin, I get it better. But in America, like, come on. That's a crazy thought to have. But one thing I'm interested in, you share only the upside or also the downside? Like if they have the downside, they don't have to pay more rent.
Only the upside. Only the upside. There is
They can
no
only win.
yep, the down. Yep. Yep. Yeah, the downside is completely up to me, and I deal with that. So yeah, it is only a win-win situation for them. There's no chance for them to lose in this case. So
Why the
it's
heck are they
bizarre to
not
me,
doing
man.
it?
Yeah, it is just crazy. I think I keep thinking that I want to, like, go bring a 12 pack of beer over there and sit down with the other residents and just kind of talk them through it. Like I said, one other one was very interested in doing it. They're all, I don't get it. They're all younger. They're all, well, certainly younger than me for sure. They're all in their probably 20s and maybe their early 30s at this point. So, but I I don't know. I think there's still that fear there of putting, you got to take responsibility for your actions when you work in Bitcoin. And if you, although with, companies like Strike and River, I mean, it's getting easier and easier for people to, you know, exchange US dollars or any currency for that matter around the world for Bitcoin at this point. And so, again, I think it's just a matter of time. I think people will get there. Hopefully the next time I'm on, I've got a few more success stories to talk about as far as people saving money. So Um, yeah. I'm also working on a plan to move the ownership of that property into a nonprofit status. And so and when I do that, what I want to do is, and it's going to sound crazy, I think, but um, what I want to do is the state of Wisconsin allows nonprofits that own property to run those to not have to pay taxes on it, to be exempt from taxes, from their property taxes. And so what I'm hoping to do is organize that property in a way that allows the ownership group, the nonprofit, to minimize their expenses by getting rid of taxes. And then they're able to basically say, hey, any new renters that come in, you'll come in and pay whatever the market rate rent is at that time. Whether it's up or down, that's what you'll pay. And that is your rent forever, as long as you live in that apartment. My minus the only downfall would be if taxes or insurance costs or utility costs go up for the common areas, like maintenance of the building. So, I think that will actually start to be able to reduce people's rent over time. And the nonprofit owner will still be quote unquote profitable. I mean, they won't be profitable, but the value of the Bitcoin that their residents are paying will more than offset any costs that they have in maintaining that building going forward. So, when the building needs a new roof or needs new windows, whatever that happens to be, all the Bitcoin that is paid by the residents will go into their reserve account for the building. And that will just be the value of the building going forward. There won't be a fiat value of the building. The nonprofit just owns it and provides the value of a building to their renters, and then is able to, I think, I don't I don't know about you, but when I was renting an apartment, now owning a home, the rent keeps going up. If I could move in somewhere where the rent is guaranteed not to go up, and all I have to do is pay you in Bitcoin in order to make that happen, plus I might save some money, plus the rent might go down over time. It just it seems to me like that is what I think of a nonprofit organization. That to me is what that should be. It should be bringing the rent down on that building, and doing so by paying off the mortgage. You bring the fiat value of that building down to zero, and you increase the Bitcoin value of that building by a representation of all of the Bitcoin that has come into it through the rent as the reserve for the building. So, yeah, I'm still working on that. I've been in my Bitcoin meetup. Man, did I talk to you about Wisco real estate the last time I was on? I don't
I don't
think I
think so.
did.
I don't think so too.
Yeah. So, man, I guess I have had a few changes. So, I've been running a local Bitcoin meetup here now for, I don't know, 3 years. I've been a part of it for 4.5 years now. And I guess I say run it. I just kind of help organize it. I don't really, I'm not big into like, it's my Bitcoin meetup. It's everybody's Bitcoin meetup. So, but a guy, one of the guys that runs an organization called Wisco Real Estate here, um, saw our meetup, invited me to one of his meetups for the real estate when he was having a Bitcoin guy from Chicago come up and give a talk to all of his real estate investors. And he offered to let me use his space, his office space, for our meetups going forward. And so it's just morphing into this really cool uh, collaboration between the two of us. And being that they're in real estate, I'm in real estate, it fits well. And they actually just raised money for a fund where they've got I think it's 30% of the investment in this property is being held in Bitcoin. And so I think it was a month and a half ago where they bought. So they raised whatever they raised. I don't remember what the dollar numbers were, but I remember they bought almost 5 Bitcoin to hold in reserve along with this property. And so any of the investors, yeah, it's kind of like what Grant Cardone's doing, and I think it's becoming more and more popular in the real estate world. And it's people dipping their toes in to be able to share in the value of that Bitcoin appreciation over time. And so I'm able to also kick around this nonprofit idea with them. And the last time, about a month ago, I met with them, had lunch with them, and they brought their CFO along as well. And he's still digesting my idea, my concept, but he thought on paper it looked good. So it may be something that slowly starts to catch on more and more here, is having these nonprofits actually be nonprofits.
And it's super interesting because I think real estate investors, real estate people understand a great asset and why a great asset is a great asset. So I think real estate people in general are primed to understand what Bitcoin is. They are primed to really get where this whole thing is coming from. And I'm just waiting for more and more real estate people to say, hey, like, why do I keep buying apartments? Why do I keep buying this? It just it gives me more work, more hustle, more things. Why don't I just buy Bitcoin? And I don't know how you stand on that, but I had a multitude of real estate people on that said, could buy the real estate and just like bought Bitcoin with their real estate and said like, I don't want to manage people anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. I just want to have Bitcoin, and discussing about rent increases or like, you have such a great concept and people still don't take you on that. Like it's a no brainer. If I'm a tenant in your apartment, I'm like, yeah, please lower my rent.
Yeah.
What do I have to do? Like you're trying to lower my rent. Yeah. Like I'm all for it. With no downside. Like I have all the downside protection that I want and nothing that's just crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I've gone back and forth on this in my own head as far as, would I buy real estate? Do I want to sell my real estate and just buy Bitcoin? But right now I'm in the mindset of I think I can continue providing value to people in the real estate world, in the apartment rental world. And there are a lot of people that just don't understand buildings, right? They don't understand how to maintain a roof on a building or the siding or how all of those building systems function together to keep your house in good shape for as long as possible. And I mean, that's visible. You drive down the road and you can see buildings in different states of disrepair where you see a gutter hanging off, or you see somebody's gutter clogged and a tree or weeds growing out of people's gutters or their downspouts, or and every time I'm just crazy. When I see that stuff, I just think, oh my gosh, those people are just costing themselves a lot of future money by not keeping that system, that gutter system or that roofing system maintained currently. But at the same time, people just don't understand that. Their accountants or their whatever, their nurses, they don't think about a roofing system on the building. They don't even want to know about it, right? They just want to go on doing their job and whatever. And so I think there will always be a need for people to repair, work on these buildings and operate them. And so I think that's where the value kind of prospect, future value, can be insured by having people that operate those systems or operate those buildings. And so I I I don't think I think that value exchange looks differently. I've been toying in my mind. I actually worked with an attorney. The University of Wisconsin Law Clinic has like free attorneys that will help draft, whatever the heck you want. And I managed to submit a proposal to them, and they liked the idea, and so they helped me draft a lease where my residents, if once I enact this, they're kind of responsible for the quote unquote like mechanical interior kind of fixtures in their apartments, and the owner, in this case a nonprofit owner, is responsible for maintaining the rest of the building. So if you come and rent from me, it's like it's more or less like it could be your permanent residence. And I know, and people can always choose to move, but I don't know about other parts of the world, but in the US, a lot of times, if you want to upgrade your plumbing fixtures, you got to get your landlord's okay. You got to get the owner's okay. If you want to change out a light fixture, you're supposed to, it all has to go through the landlord and be approved by them. Otherwise, you can't make changes to the apartment. And I think we can flip that on its head and say, hey, if you rent and you're paying rent in Bitcoin, it's your apartment. You do with the interior what you want, as long as it's done in a professional manner and it's not going to, burn the place down or flood the place out. You can change that faucet on your kitchen sink if you want it to look differently, or if you're Donald Trump and you want to put gold toilets in your apartment, go right ahead. It's one of those things where on if you punch a hole or fall against your wall and put a hole in it, historically that would be on the landlord to maintain the interior of the building. But I think in on a Bitcoin standard, you can, the resident, whoever's basically in that unit, can fix that and be held responsible to fix that on their own. And yeah, I don't. I'm kind of getting a little off on a tangent here. I haven't fully thought this out 100%, and it's such a change from how historically things have been done that I think it's going to take a while for that to take effect, to take hold, and for people to go, oh yeah, that really is a better way to do it. So.
I don't know if I have a controversial opinion on that, but I'm curious on what you think about that. I think on a full Bitcoin standard, most people will own their own homes. They will not have to rent out, and they will make owning a home affordable again. So right now, the real estate market is 300 trillion, 350 trillion. And there's a lot of monetary premium in them because a lot of people buy apartments just to hold them. They're not passionate landlords like you. You're clearly passionate. You clearly want to provide a great value. Most people are just landlords because, they have a home and they're like wanting to make some revenue with that. It seems like you actually are on the opposite side of like wanting to provide a value, which I love. Like this is amazing. I would love for you to come to Vienna, buy some apartments and rent it out to me. I would love to be a tenant of yours. But I think in a true Bitcoin standard world, and we can already see that, you will be able to buy your own home the same way as you will be able to buy your own car and your own phone and your own laptop. And a home doesn't need to be so expensive. So I think Bitcoin will fluck out the absolute enormous monetary premium out of those real estate properties and make them affordable again. And we can already see that. I can bring up the chart. Maybe I can quickly do that. When we go to priced in Bitcoin 21, a website that I absolutely love. It was down for a little while and now it's back up again, and I love it. Thank you so much. Whoever makes that website,
Yes.
I would love to host you on my podcast. Oh gosh, is it now not up? Gosh, home.
Oh, uh-oh.
It's no longer up. Gosh,
Oh, no.
it's not working. Yeah, it's working. It's working. It's just slow.
Okay. All right.
By the way, if someone knows who owns that website, I would love to speak to him. He provided such a great value to the Bitcoin community just with that website. And here we can go to where is it? Currency, stocks, metals, energy, primary benchmarks, agriculture. Oh gosh, do you see it where the real estate is?
I do not.
Did he delete the real estate part? He might.
Maybe.
Currencies, stocks, metals, energy, agriculture, orange juice. Bitcoin treasury companies, even Bitcoin treasury companies. Oh, that's crazy. You see that all Bitcoin treasury companies except MicroStrategy are going down.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
I actually, I posted another Noster post about that yesterday, and I was thinking about, everybody keeps talking about these Bitcoin strategy companies and whether or not they're going to be successful over the long term. And my thought was, if with Michael Saylor with strategy in particular, him not providing proof of reserves, I think is a potentially huge mistake on his part, because as soon as the first Bitcoin treasury company goes under, because when we get to a point where all the Bitcoin is spoken for, and yet these companies are still saying they're buying Bitcoin, and they're not able to prove their reserves, and there's a quote unquote bank run on that treasury company, any other company that's out there that doesn't have proof of reserves posted, I think is open for a bank run as well. And, that is a contagion that could spread like wildfire. And, I don't know if anybody is reallocating or not. I forget the term that we always use in Bitcoin, but they're rehypothecating their funds, saying they have more Bitcoin than they actually do, or whatever. They're using Bitcoin that came in first to pay the people their percentages or whatever they're guaranteed, their investment interest in that are coming in now. And if that happens, you could see Bitcoin treasury companies, especially again the ones that haven't posted the proof of reserves, really have a negative downside. And it's just food for thought. I don't, again, I'm a Bitcoin guy. I just want to have the Bitcoin in my cold storage wallet, and that's that. But yeah, anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent from the real estate side of things. We can go back to that.
The first time I ever made any money, I got myself from that money a watch. And ever since then, I collect timepieces to remember times where I achieved some milestone. That's why I got the Bitcoin 2025 edition when I went to my first ever American Bitcoin conference. So for me, the Bitcoin watches from CoinVigilante represents the time that we are living in. For every person that wears a Bitcoin watch, I know they are representing sound money to the outside world. Make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. I know how big of a hurdle it can be to have self-custody, but it's so freaking important to make that first step. We have to make sure it's as easy and simple as possible. And that's exactly what BitBox did. BitBox created the simplest and the easiest hardware wallet to use to get into self-custody. So get yourself a BitBox down from the link in the description. And when you use code Robin, you even get a 5% discount. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They're also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called Microseed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Again, that's microseed.io to get your last backup tool you ever need. This is proof of reserves has, I think, some major flaws that people don't think about. But in general, I love it and I'm a great fan of it. But the first flaw is it only shows one side of the balance sheet, and this not even fully. So you might have other fiat funds that you cannot really have a proof for. And you might also have another Bitcoin wallet. We now have this discussion with El Salvador that they are buying 1 Bitcoin a day, but then there's rumors that they're actually not buying any since February, just moving from one unknown wallet to a public wallet. So proof of reserve sounds usually better than it is. It is great. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not against proof of reserve. And I also think all the companies should do that. I'm just not fully sure if it's the end all be all solution for everything, because, okay, if they have 100,000 Bitcoin, but how much debt do they have? Do they have other Bitcoin wallets? How much fiat reserves do they have? What are the assets of the company in general? Like, they don't only have Bitcoin, they have other assets also that are valuable. Do they have some properties and all of that? So there's just like a lot of open questions. But in general, like, proof of reserve is better than non-proof of reserve, but it's also not an end all be all great solution that will like fix everything, even though I think it should be the standard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm fully in agreement with you. I think this is going to get even weirder now. I think with Bitcoin, you get to a point where you have to be 100% transparent. And when we're talking about these Bitcoin strategy companies, treasury companies, they're not 100% transparent. And on top of that, they are exchanging, right? We're exchanging fiat value for the Bitcoin, and it almost is like artificially inflating their Bitcoin value, because it's the self-fulfilling prophecy, or this flywheel effect, where the more money coming in makes you able to buy more Bitcoin, you are insulated to a degree from any increase in the fiat value of that Bitcoin, because you keep bringing more fiat into the system. And as long as that's working, that'll, I think that keeps flowing. But at some point we get onto a Bitcoin standard, right? We move away from fiat values for everything. And at that point, all of that comes crashing down. There is no MicroStrategy that has, trillions and trillions of dollars worth of value, because all of that value is only the Bitcoin that company owns at that point. Now, that is probably decades away. I mean, nobody can tell the future. I certainly can't, but I do think there is an endpoint for all of these companies. And this goes for every company, all of these companies that are putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet, all of these companies that are, inserting Bitcoin into the value of their real estate fund, right? That Bitcoin value, yes, it's going up right now in fiat terms, but when fiat disappears, now that property is only valued in the Bitcoin that company holds. And that's where you get to this point where you're only getting value exchanged if you're providing something for somebody else and they value it enough to give you some of their Bitcoin. And at that point we will only be talking in Satoshis and maybe some smaller denomination of Bitcoin at that point. We may have to go add another decimal point or something at that point. But it when you play it all the way out, that's the end game, is everything is valued in Bitcoin. That means, again, that, this idea with my property, for instance, right? It's valued right now in fiat terms at $600,000. In Bitcoin terms, I've got a half a Bitcoin that is in my reserve account right now. And I look at the value of that building only as that half a Bitcoin in reserves right now. That's it. And I try and think of it that way. And I try to think I need to bring in Bitcoin into that reserve account and get rid of the dollar value of that, because in whatever number of years, however long it takes, that is all anybody's going to care about is what is the Bitcoin value of that stuff. So I think it works in the same way with the Treasury companies. I mean, it's Jeff Booth likes to talk about these. We have two different systems. You can't measure the value of things in Bitcoin terms by comparing it to the dollar value of it, right? We do that right now. A lot of us Bitcoiners do that as well. But really, if we are in the only free market that we've ever known and Bitcoin is valuing everything, we gotta all be starting to think more and more of it is just the Bitcoin value. It has nothing to do with that quote unquote fiat value that may have been there when the initial conditions of the system were set up. So did that make any sense?
There was a lot of senseful things in there. And
Okay,
what I thought about is what if there's a point in history where all the Bitcoin combined that
you froze up on me.
I froze. Oh, like I will be back.
Hey, there we go. All right.
But I was thinking about that. What if all the Bitcoin combined on the Bitcoin Treasury company balance sheets are exceeding 21 million?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. When we will get to that point. We will get to the point where, all of these companies, the ETFs that are out there, there's too much Bitcoin. And I can't remember what podcast was it, yours, where there just within the last day or two, I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about two different, I think it was Samson Mao, maybe, or Tom Lee. I don't remember which one of them. We're talking about there being two prices for Bitcoin. There will be the price of the actual spot Bitcoin or Bitcoin in people's cold storage wallets. And then there will be the price of Bitcoin that you pay to BlackRock for their ETF, right? Because we will all know and see that they've got quote unquote more Bitcoin than what there is available, period. And so we may find ourselves running in a point where we've got regular Bitcoin value that all of us know. And then we've got these ETFs and these treasury companies that say, no, the Bitcoin value is, X, when really everybody that holds spot Bitcoin, that value when they exchange it on the base chain is Y. So we're certainly heading to that in that direction, and that will be I think a point of I don't want to call it like the next big Bitcoin split or hard fork, but I think there will come a time where people will have to go, all right, BlackRock says Bitcoin's value is 150,000 a coin. But on this other layer over here, the base layer that everybody is exchanging Bitcoin at, it's 300,000. And that's because BlackRock says there's 40 million Bitcoin that they hold, but they really only have, 200 or half of that on their, in their wallets, in their possession. So I think that comes from that rehypothecation of everything. I mean, that's just the system, the way we've got that system designed. Until we hit that point, we can't know which way things will go. Either the value of BlackRock's Bitcoin will go way up and match the spot value, the base chain value, or that whole company and that whole system that they put in place may come crashing down, and it will likely affect all the all of Bitcoin, and just kind of wash it out, and then we'll start rebuilding again, hopefully a better system.
I have maybe a different view on that. I think if BlackRock is doing that and the public doesn't know about that, the Bitcoin price of the BlackRock Bitcoin will be the same as the spot one. I don't think there will be a difference if the public does not know. If the public knows, this is the moment where it crashes down. That's the FTX moment. That's the moment where this is actually coming down. And the reason I'm saying is because we can actually prove with Bitcoin. And with all other things, it's a rumor. With gold, it's a rumor. With any other assets, with real estate, they are doing it. It's a rumor. But if they're doing it with Bitcoin and we can prove that to the public, they're gone. Like the clients won't trust them if it's provable that they don't own it actually. And so that's where I see a big difference in the valuation of Bitcoin for those people, because we can actually prove it. And the question is, can they make sure, if they even do that? I personally don't think they are currently doing it. I think they're actually just buying the Bitcoin because they don't really profit off not buying the Bitcoin. They're making so much money with the fees. Why would they do that? Why would they risk that? I don't see the incentive structured out like that. But if they do that, eventually they will get caught by Bitcoiners, and eventually this will break them down. And so I don't know. I hope they don't do it. I don't think they do it. But if they do it, nothing bad will happen to Bitcoin, but a lot of bad things will happen to BlackRock.
Yeah, is it BlackRock or is it another ETF company as well? I think I think it likely, again, just like with Bitcoin treasury companies and strategy, I think likely it is a smaller company that gets called out on it, or that gets, found out on it. And it absolutely would, I would hope it would come, the price would come crashing down, that system would come crashing down, because other people, like, again, it's contagion, right? It spreads. And once that word gets out, people start going, oh my God, I need to get my money out, right? But again, this is, we're talking about this in dollar terms, or comparing it to a fiat system. And that's where it's hard for everybody to make that cognitive switch in their head and go, no, it's not Bitcoin. We need to get, that system needs to go away. But I absolutely agree that Bitcoin is provable. Bitcoin will show. My concern, and I think I kind of heard it with what you were saying, is whether that word gets out. I mean, when you think about, just I can't imagine. I think every company in the US at least has a 401k and offers their employees this 401k option. When you start thinking that every single person in the US could own some Bitcoin through their 401k, through one of these big bank companies, they're going to have a lot of power, and they're going to have a lot of incentive to not let that story get out, or to change the narrative of that story. And so the more people that go into Bitcoin through these, quote, historical systems that we have in place, I think that makes it a little harder for the Bitcoin system and the Bitcoin word to get out there, and to take control of the narrative. And so, it's, I think we all, while I do believe everything is good for Bitcoin, we've got to be careful of what really is good for Bitcoin in the long run, or to just not get out over our skis in what we think we've got in value in Bitcoin, and then come to find out all of this rehypothecation has been going on, and none of it is actually there. So, it's so tough. It's just, it's so tough to keep your head on in a Bitcoin mindset and how things should work in Bitcoin, because we all grew up with fiat, and we know that system, and that is what is programmed into our heads. And so I just find myself stopping and going, shit, is this really, does this system work this way in Bitcoin? And then you got to almost play that out in your head and go, yes, it does, or no, it doesn't, kind of a thing. So I don't know, man. It's tough. It'll be good, and then it'll be bad, and then it'll be good again. I think that's the way the world works. So, it's like the yin and yang, and the good and the bad, and the, however you want to look at that, the right and the left, whatever dichotomy you want to talk about. Bitcoin always seems to come back to, it's Bitcoin. That's it. That's all it is. And it almost splits the middle on those systems working. So
I think the Bitcoin soldiers out there, and with Bitcoin soldiers, I mean everyone that is for Bitcoin and making waves positively, influencing the Bitcoin movement and accelerating the Bitcoin movement. So if you look at podcasters, if you look at guests of podcasts, if you look at people that listen to podcasts and leave replies and comments, if you look at people that share podcasts or books or any other form of content, if you look at people that just in the street and asking people on Bitcoin. If you look at people that just go out and eat and say, hey, can I pay with Bitcoin here? Or if you look at people that say, hey, I want to sit down in my neighborhood and tell them a little bit about Bitcoin. Whatever you do in Bitcoin, you are a Bitcoin soldier. And those Bitcoin soldiers are the most powerful force I've ever seen in the history of a revolution. It's fascinating to see how decentralized we are organizing ourselves with meetups, with conferences, and all of the great products and services in the sphere. So I don't have a single doubt in my mind that we will tackle every enemy that tries to come for our Bitcoin. Like, I have no doubt in my mind, because we are very strong and we are very loud. And even though we are not a lot, like we are not that many people, that's the only weakness we have. We are not that many people, but we are freaking loud. We are making a huge impact, even though we are just a few people that just come around and say like, hey, let's revolutionize finance. Let's break this old system down. And this is fascinating for me. So I don't have a single doubt in my mind that we can shape the narrative in our way. It's like I do think we have that force.
Yeah, I'm 99.9% there. I do, the old system, the fiat system is a powerful force. I mean, that is that is the world system right now. And changing that over, it's gonna be tough. I mean, I mean, for 16 years, right? It's been a tough road to walk down. And I think it's going to get tougher with as more people in the traditional finance world adopt Bitcoin and put it on their balance sheets and find these ways to make it more valuable. It becomes, again, if every person in the US has Bitcoin through their 401k, but they don't have Bitcoin in cold storage, it makes it easier on those companies running the 401ks to rehypothecate that Bitcoin. And that's where we get into this world where more and more of Bitcoiners that are self-sovereign and are holding that Bitcoin in cold storage themselves, where more and more of that Bitcoin ends up disappearing, so to speak, or it almost like it gets transferred through things like Michael Saylor talking about not passing on his Bitcoin to anybody and just kind of taking the keys with him. All of that cold storage Bitcoin starts to disappear, and all of a sudden all you have is the Bitcoin that BlackRock says is out there. And we will always have people that are verifying what Bitcoin is out there on the network, but it's going to. I think there will be challenges ahead with how that interaction goes. I think one thing that I wanted to go back to as well is talking about the Bitcoin soldiers that we are, and other people in real estate and other industries saying, no, it's not worth dealing with that customer anymore. And I just want to out of that and I'm going to sell it. Pretty soon people are going to end up selling for a loss, quote unquote loss. They're going to sell their property for less than what they owe on it because they can't get that value out of it anymore. And I think people that are going that route are not necessarily contributing the same to Bitcoin and to the network. They're just in it for cashing for the number go up. And I think that is also a dangerous mindset for people to get into. And, again, that's why I kind of go back and forth on, do I sell my real estate? Don't I sell my real estate? I could sell it now and then buy it back in 10 years for half of what it is right now, half the value or whatever. And yeah, I'm kind of leveraging myself and my Bitcoin currently in that manner, but But then what am I going to do for the network? What am I going to do for Bitcoin between now and then? Just sit on it and watch it grow? Sure, I could do that, but you know, I'm not helping get Bitcoin in other people's hands. I'm not helping people understand that they really can take their personal responsibility and their self sovereignty into their own hands by participating in the network. So I think that's an important message that we need to get out to people as well. Is it's important to understand this is your self sovereignty. This is how you're being controlled right now and manipulated by the state, by the government, by whoever, because they've they've got you in their system of fiat bullshittery, and it's a losing proposition if you stay in those systems.
But you do realize, like, when did you first got Bitcoin? Like, it was 2021, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say 2021 is when I really went down the rabbit hole hard. And I've probably spent at least 5 hours a week listening to Bitcoin podcasts, reading Bitcoin books, studying Bitcoin since then. So that's what, 20 some 30,000 hours of work put into the network, of trying to understand. And I think all of our understanding evolves over time as we learn different aspects of how people are some people are just trying to get rich out of it, and how some people are, really taking their self sovereignty into account and not, opting out of those traditional systems.
Because I want to show you something.
All right.
If you have real estate, and there's for me just one logical reason why you have real estate, because you either have a business and you're servicing other people, what you're basically doing, or you have it as an emotional thing of like, oh, I want to own real estate right now. As I said before, I think at some point all Bitcoiners will own real estate, not as an investment, but as their own home. And just simply because it will get so ridiculous cheap to buy a house for everyone that is watching right now, they will be able to buy a home for a small part of their portfolio, and it will be crazy. And we can see that chart. We can see where in 2011, one US median house was, how much Bitcoin is 64,000 Bitcoin. Then it went down to like 340 Bitcoin. It went down to 30 Bitcoin. And now we are all the way down to 4 Bitcoin. And I do think we will come to 3 Bitcoin, 1 Bitcoin, 0.1 Bitcoin, and so on. Like it will not stop. Like, depends on like how much time you have. And so if you look as a real estate investor, you're like, look 2-3 times very closely why you own that real estate, because you might lose out on a massive opportunity to secure generational wealth for you, your kids, for whoever you think of. And there's only, again, I go back to what I said before, there's only 2 reasons why you own real estate. Either it's your home, and you want to own your home, because I think right now renting is actually a better idea, but that's a whole nother discussion. Or you have a business where you get the cash flow and you buy with the cash flow Bitcoin and all those things, where it can make sense, like investing in your own business. But like owning real estate, like you, all real estate investors should really look twice at the investment thesis of like, why do they really own it? So I'm curious, because I feel like at some point you might go ahead and say like, I want to retire. I don't want to deal with tenants anymore. I just want to do whatever, and I'll go ahead and liquidate real estate and just be in Bitcoin.
Yeah, man. So a couple of things, and I know we're getting close to having to wrap up here. I don't want to keep you too long, but I I could go for another hour or so. Um, don't want it's I'll leave it up to you there. But yes, on the real estate side, when you're looking at it in Bitcoin terms, everything is going trending towards zero. On the fiat side of that, that 3 Bitcoin, 2 Bitcoin, 1 Bitcoin, the fiat value of that Bitcoin is going up though, right? And there are people that still live in fiat world that only think about fiat value. And there's still businesses out there that are looking at, the value of real estate going, oh, it's going to go up forever. And as long as there are still people out there thinking in those terms, we will see that that system maintain itself in fiat terms. I I have no doubt in my mind that my renters at my property, and like I said, the value of my property will only be the Bitcoin that I hold in reserve on that property. I think my renters will not want to, they won't want to move. It will in essence, and it may morph into a situation where when you go to rent an apartment, you rent it for as long as you want it. I can't evict you. I don't evict you. You're responsible for all your actions there. If with the exception of maybe criminal activity, right? And we will certainly go through a period of increased almost certainly go through a period of increased criminal activity as systems come crashing down to zero in Bitcoin terms around the world, as this kind of happens in pockets here and there. If I've got a nonprofit and I'm starting to buy up these properties at what I think are, you know, getting people to donate money in fiat terms so that I can buy these properties and make them long term, tell people you're not getting evicted for as long as you want to rent here. If you pay in Bitcoin, you will be able to continue to rent here, and your rent will never go higher than this fiat value when compared in Bitcoin terms going forward. I think people will tend to stay in one place longer. You almost get locked in until more and more of these types of companies, real renters, landlords pop up around the world, until more and more people start to understand, for me, the long-term value of owning that building is my skill set in being able to provide people a safe, warm, free from the elements kind of housing and keep it in good shape so that it's standing. And their responsibility changes from how much can I suck out of my landlord? I want this, I want that, I want this in my apartment, to I'm now responsible for the things inside of my apartment. I think of it kind of like owning a car where you get a warranty from the dealer when you buy a new car that they cover, against defects, except for things like your brakes, your engine wear, things that wear out quicker, your flooring in your apartment. I look at that as like the brakes in your car. The resident, whoever lives there, instead of the landlord being responsible for replacing it and maintaining it, the resident ends up responsible on a Bitcoin standard. Now, again, that's way out there. That's completely opposite of the system that is in place currently. And I that as that changes, I think it becomes easier to kind of maintain that. But again, that the value of that building is trending towards zero in Bitcoin terms for sure. Because over time, you just won't. Again, I've got half a Bitcoin in reserves for that building right now. In a year, year and a half, maybe 2 years, it'll be one full Bitcoin. But by then, I don't know that I'm going to be able to get a lot more reserves, because the rent in Bitcoin terms continues to go down for my renters as well. And, where I was getting 1 million sats from my renters for rent, I'm now getting, 800,000 sats or 700,000 sats to pay their rent at this point. And as that goes down, continues to go down, the amount that of sats I can collect from them and hold in reserves for that property continues to go down. And, if you're buying a building today, your initial the initial condition at the setup of that system is higher in fiat terms. And so the value that you can hold, you start getting rent paid in Bitcoin from your renters, that 800,000, 300,000, 200,000, 90,000 sats takes longer and longer to add up and change the value of that building. So I don't, it's, it's just tough. It just is, it is such a mind change, such a different idea than what people have right now. It just, I know it's going to be hard, and I know it's going to take a lot longer than, just the next 2 or 3 years. It's that kind of change has to take time, because it just, it's like if we all of a sudden decided that the earth was flat again, and I know I'm getting into a whole nother, kind of rabbit hole, but, it, or the sun isn't the center of the solar system or something. It would be, it's such a system change, and it goes against the belief of everybody in the world right now that it is just going to take time. And when you feel like something is too good to be true, people tend to shy away from it, and it takes a little bit longer to persuade people, because we've all been burned so much that we all are very skittish when it comes to these ideas and these changes that benefit us all. And I keep going back to Jeff Booth. I love the way he thinks about this, and what his concept of all of us 8 billion people working, in collaboration with the other 7.9 billion people on the planet, that things just get so much better. It happens, but that change is going to take a while. It's just the network effect. It just takes a while.
Yeah, it's the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who might actually do. This is I think Steve Jobs' very famous quote, and I love it. And if you look back in history, it was always the people that looked very crazy to mainstream that then changed a lot afterwards, because they thought about something that was not mainstream. And there are 100% things that are currently mainstream that are not as they appear to be. I mean, central banking is a great example. That's like the whole thing of the podcast.
Yes.
But yeah, I could talk with you for hours, man. You are super interesting, and thank you so much for taking the time. I have one question that I always ask each and every one of my guests, my returning guests, and the question is, what have you learned outside of Bitcoin since your last appearance?
Yes, that is a very good question. My mind goes in many different directions, and there is so much information available online. I follow podcasts that talk about astronomy, physics, astrophysics, and then it also goes to like people camping in the woods and how to start a fire from what you've got around you. And I feel like I try to learn. I almost think sometimes I try to learn too much, and try to keep my mind open to everything. That it can be hard to pinpoint any one thing in particular. I think what is settling into my head more though is this concept of, and I got to give credit to Jeff Booth again for it. This concept of the free market is something that we've never experienced, and we the world really does look completely different when you think about operating on a Bitcoin standard, on sound money that can't be fucked with. And I think just the deeper that settles into my mind, the more assured I am, and the more the world around me starts making more sense, and that we all can work with each other. And this divisiveness that is spread like wildfire around the world, really, where people can't even talk to each other and have a difference of opinion, because they get canceled or whatever, is just it's part of that, a symptom of that fiat system. And under a Bitcoin standard, it goes away. It does change, and we all can get better by listening to each other and having that discourse in an honest and appreciative way. So.
I 100% agree with you. It's very nice, and I do hope that Bitcoin brings that change to us. We have an end routine, as you well know, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And the previous guest asked you the question: what would be the thing that makes you sell all your Bitcoin?
Nothing. There is absolutely nothing that would ever make me. I would never sell my. No. I will exchange my Bitcoin with people that provide me value in ways that I appreciate. But no, I never
die on this hill.
Yes. I will never sell my Bitcoin. Sorry.
I love that. I'm very much like that. Thank you so much, Jason, for being on. Before I let you go, where can people find you and ask you questions?
Yeah, I'm the commoner on Nostr, Primal, whatever, Damus. Just hit me up. I'm active on there pretty much every single day. I try to write a post a day, but that kind of ebbs and flows. So.
Awesome. Then thank you so much for being on, Jason. And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.